We sank our teeth into Buffalo Hunter x Hunter, and trust us, this is a book that bites back.
It's a novel that doesn't ask for your attention, it demands it. Readers,
Reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears.
And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage. What I am is the Indian who can't die. I am the worst dream America ever had. That is a very small passage from the Buffalo Hunter x Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. And if that grabs you, which it should do, go and pick it up right now. If you want a bit more persuading, then listen to the rest of our review, because this book blew our minds.
Hello and welcome today as we talk about a book we have recently loved. I'm very kind of smug to say I read it first, and I said, Ed, you should read this. And he picked it up and you loved it. And that book is Buffalo Hunter x Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. He's a prolific author. He's been around for a while. He's known to really mix history and horror in a brilliant way. We won't say the key horror concept in Buffalo Hunter x Hunter because some people would prefer to go in blind. And so we'll kind of, make sure to go around that. But there is a lot of mention of horror, history, and much more of what we loved about this book. Let's plonk that up here and we can talk about why we loved it so much. Ed, tell us a bit about why this is an incredible book.
So, Stephen Graham Jones is an Indigenous author, and he, as Will said here, has blended perfectly horror, fantasy, I would say, and historical fiction. Now, nothing is grimmer or darker than history. That is what George R. R. Martin himself said, and I completely agree. And here, it feels like Stephen Graham Jones' message was you can add fantastical elements, you can add horror, but the real horror is in the history of what has happened, what has preceded us.
That is very true. And Buffalo Hunter x Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones is a genre-defying horror novel that reimagines a horror myth through the lens of American history, trauma, survival, and much that wants to be pushed away from the lens of history.
This book is such a powerful novel that Will and I aren't typically horror readers, and we aren't really readers who read too much kind of genre mashups, but I would say this is a book that I'd recommend to pretty much everyone in terms of it's such a powerful, unique, and individual read that I feel like it's such an unexpected book that you would love no matter what you read, that I would recommend you pick it up and give it a go. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say something since, especially for fantasy readers, since the Game of Thrones, the Farseid trilogy, is character complexity and not just having the good and the bad against each other. And I'd say that this is one that will really tick those boxes because it's not a story that the monsters are evil, everyone else is good, and we're fighting the monsters. It is very different. Jones denies us that comfort. It's a bit like Carrie by Stephen King, Let the Right One In. A lot of books along that ilk denies us that comfort. The monsters are monstrous, but so is everybody else. The humans are often worse, and you will get rays of hope, rays of sentimentality. It's not all bleak, and moments that are very heartwarming, but amongst them you'll see the depravity of humanity, as well as these monstrous figures as well. Yeah. There are glimmers of the compassion and sacrifice, so I guess it's not all bad.
Beautifully put, Will. Will, please tell us, what is Buffalo Hunter x Hunter about for those people that hopefully we've now piqued their interest?
So it seems like quite a complex premise because this is a story that has got a few different timelines. We begin with someone in the modern day discovering a diary of their great ancestor. So they're in the modern day, they discover a diary from the very early 20th century.
Yep.
And that diary is talking about someone they met and their story from the kind of mid 19th century to the end of the 19th century.
Yeah.
And so it's a story that really spans a lot of time, but we mainly go back into the earlier two stories. We've got a Lutheran, is that how you say it? Lutheran priest, the ancestor, who has met someone who's quite intriguing, and they start to tell him the story of their past. And at first, this guy, he's incredulous. He's like, this isn't real, but I'm just going to listen. And he slowly starts to think, maybe there is a spin to this. Maybe there is more than I know. And so we've got built into that the history of America, a lot of I'm trying to not give spoilers because
really
there
hard.
is a very key horror aspect that we can't give away. But there is a great thematic exploration. We look at the horror of humanity, but it's also very intimate. And so this horror aspect feels like it really could exist, which often in horror it feels like, well, how does everybody not just know? You can't really relate to it because we know in real life that we don't see werewolves, bats. We don't live in the land of Hellboy or stuff where creatures are just running around day and night. Maybe we do, but I'd believe it if there was one or two, like Jurassic Park, they're contained. And so Buffalo Hunter is an intimate story at the heart of it. It's about the characterization, and we're character-driven readers, and so this was a book for us.
So for a book that the vast majority of it is one character relaying their life story to another character, there is so much tension that is palpable the further you read between two of the characters. That one character is conducting essentially an interview, and the other character is basically conducting their own confession. And the tension that grows with each chapter between these two characters is so addictive. And I think Buffalo Hunter is quite an addictive book to read. I burned through it in 2 days. I just had to keep reading. I had to turn the next page. It's very Moorish. There are kind of twists and turns and little inklings that start to grow in your mind as you read it, and it's a really powerful read. So it's mainly about the character called Good Stab, and he is a member of the Blackfeet tribe. So he is Blackfoot, and the way that Stephen Graham Jones writes using Blackfoot linguistics, he's really done his research. In an interview, actually, he stated that his biggest inspiration behind that book, the way that Good Stab spoke, was James Welch's very famous novel Falls Crow, which is an incredible story of a character called Falls Crow. And I just love the way that the conventions of the Blackfoot language are used in this story, and it just feels so immersive. Like, it's probably the most immersive book I've ever read. And the way that Good Stab's journey unfolds through his own confessions. Stephen Graham Jones had a real kind of understanding of character beats and when to reveal, what's behind a curtain, when to open a doorway, when to leave a doorway creaking open. And that's all metaphorical. There aren't many curtains or doorways in this book. But there's a lot of things that he leaves for the reader to kind of to think about, to ponder, and then he rips it away from you, and it's just incredible.
Yeah. A bit similar to Cormac McCarthy, what is left unsaid is as important as what is said, and there's a lot to dive into with that. Another aspect of Buffalo Hunter is I'd say this can be a very divisive read. Luckily, we fall into the camp of loving it, but there are many who will hate it. But I also think that you will be able to tell within the first 40 or 50 pages. We're not going to say, wait until the 400th page. Then you'll realise if you'll love it. We can save you time. 40, 50 pages in, and you'll realise whether the strong writing style and the thematic approach clicks with you. And if it doesn't, I don't think that will get better. And reading's subjective. That's what's wonderful about it. But that's also indicative of if you'll love it as well. If you're enjoying those first 40, 50 pages, I think that you will adore the rest of this story, and it will just grow on you like some fun guy. But it's not very fun.
No, it's not fun at all.
There's not much room for that sort of stuff going on.
I would love to talk about the horror elements, because really I'm not someone who typically likes too much horror. I might watch a bit of horror. It's a bit like my sci-fi. I don't really love reading sci-fi unless it's Dune. But I would definitely watch more sci-fi. I typically don't really like slasher horror. But this book has horror elements that are so kind of primal, that are so kind of stripped back to the very core of what makes these classic creatures, really, these classic tropes, through literature and through folklore. It's just done so well, and the way that Stephen Graham Jones crafted this character, this monster, some of the time, through the world, through the lore, and through the history, and through this character's mythologies. Is really, really fascinating through the culture of the Blackfoot. As I said, I don't really particularly love horror, really, but I absolutely loved it here because it came through the setting, through the character. And there were moments that were written so tenderly that they actually felt far more powerful, and they felt like the horrifying aspects of the book. I wish we were doing a spoiler review, because I would love to talk about some of them, but maybe one day. I would love to talk more about that. But there are some moments here where a character does something, and with Stephen Graham Jones's turn of phrase, he's able to turn something so simple and human into something so supremely terrifying and disturbing that it makes you understand that it is actually human in the kind of the principle of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's in the intimacy. As I was saying with books like Let the Right One In, it's because of how close you become to the characters and what an intimate, contained story it is that makes it so horrifying. And so Let the Right One In, that's got a vampire in it. And that is just horrifying, the reimagination, and where you love this character. In other ways, they're revolting and terrifying still. And you see some humans are even worse and you hate them more.
Yeah.
And then Carrie, Stephen King, goes further in that Carrie, she technically is monstrous, because monstrous, actually, I think the root term just meant different, strange, alien. And so that's become a negative term. And so Buffalo Hunter, it's not quite showing kind of this monster as a good thing. Definitely not. But that is horrifying to the person involved as well. And because of the intimacy, that really introduces the horror to a whole new level. As I'd said, I agree, I'm not a horror fan of slashers, or I don't read much horror, but we all feel fear, so we can all relate to that side of the horror, in that the character feels so much fear here, and so do those hearing these tales, and you really feel that seep into the page. That is where the tension springs from, and that is where it grows.
Yeah, it's a book that grabs you with both hands, and it will hold you in its clutches until you have finished the very last page. It built up to the climax fantastically, and I absolutely love the way that the novel progressed through different phases of this monstrous being. So it's a book that really, really hit home for me as a home run. I completely adored it. It's my favourite read of the year so far, and I don't know how a book can top it, because it's just so good. I absolutely loved it, and I'm going to be reading a lot more Stephen Graham Jones.
Yeah, we thought, there's no point going into this this review saying, "Oh, shall we build some suspense? Did we like it? Did we not?" Because everything we said, we knew we'd just be saying we love it, and we recognise it is divisive. I think it's more divisive than you do. Yeah. So that's basically the only negative I'd say is I absolutely loved it, but I can see why some people won't. The writing style is very strong in the use of the timelines, in the use of immersive language. A lot of it is very topical for the time, and is taking... I forgot the specific word, but anyway... Yeah, the language of the period, and utilising it for the story, which can feel a bit jarring to some people. And I felt the first 20 pages took me to adapt, and then I did. And so that's why I'm saying 40-50 page mark, where you've really seeped into that second timeline.
It can feel like a literary fiction at times because of... I mean, to me, this is the best prose I've ever read. Now, I'm a big fan of Pat Barker's The Silence of the Girls, and this is the only prose that I think can go toe-to-toe with that. It's absolutely incredible.
Big praise.
Big praise for big prose. We loved it. Please let us know in the comments below if you also love Buffalo Hunter Hunter. And if you don't love
Please say yes.
If you don't love it, then what are you doing here? Then you should leave. Don't comment though. Don't tell me you don't love it, because I'll be incredibly disappointed.
It's good for the algorithm though, Ed, if people do comment.
We don't like negative stuff, do we?
No, we don't. We only talk about the positive stuff, and that's why we're talking about Buffalo Hunter here today. A book we love. Let us know if you've read it, if you're going to read it, and have we convinced you? Please say yes, because it's a standalone, it's a palate cleanser, it's horrifying, but also thought-provoking, and one that I'll be recommending to everyone.
Readers, reviewers, truth and courage, the brothers Gwynne.
Truth and courage.